So I want to, I talked last time about having a plan, and Steve Covey says you always think of with the end in mind. And with that in mind, virtual is standard now. 15 years ago, virtual was optional. I mean, I can remember the first time I put a DVD online and there wasn't enough bandwidth to support it. And I had to use an outside vendor to host the DVD. And that was kind of different back then. But virtual is standard now. It's not optional. Before the pandemic hit, now one thing that Obamacare did, regardless of what your politics are, one thing Obamacare did, it did change consumers' behavior. It did make consumers feel more comfortable and make it more common and familiar to put personal health information and financial information in a website online. So Obamacare did drag the industry into that type of marketplace. And before the pandemic, it was a struggle for insurance companies to kind of move into that business model. And as soon as the pandemic hit, the digital business went crazy. I know everybody started contacting me. How do we do this online? They knew I'd been doing webinars and have had a platform for years. How do we do this online? And now everybody is moving that way. And a couple of examples of it is underwriting's changed. So they change how they secure their records now, and how people receive coverage has changed. That just gives you an idea of how virtual is now a standard. It's not an option. And insurance agents were much quicker to adapt than insurance company and carriers, because they went with video conferencing, e-apps. They looked for carriers that had e-signatures, e-delivery. They recognized that their money was predicated on the way the consumer buys. And so again, virtual has become a standard. I will show you this. Digital right now is the greatest transformation in any industry. It's a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity around the world. Because if you look at this young lady sitting there, that is an agent or a consumer. They're sitting in their home, they're chatting on a mobile, they're watching Netflix, they're scrolling emails, they're checking payroll, they're shoe shopping, they're doing everything virtually. That's exactly the way consumers are right now. And so we have to recognize that we have got to meet people where they're at and with what they're doing. And your biggest competition, any insurance company's biggest competition, I've told a lot of the companies I work with this exact same thing, is not another carrier. Your biggest competition isn't the other product that somebody has. It's not even the price that another product is. Your biggest competition is not even the commission that an agent can get somewhere else. Although I still agree that an agent will jump ship for 5%. But that's not even the biggest competition. The biggest competition is the IMOs and the broker dealers and the agencies out there that have adapted. And this is an example. I get marketed to, I'm sure just like Cody does, every insurance agent out there gets marketed to 20 times a week. And so this is Ritter. I started working with Ritter 5 years ago when I was a president of the Senior Insurance and Marketing Association, and they started an online platform. I produced content for them every week for a year, and they got their program together. They're masters at this. And if you look at the emails that they sent out, they talk about their platform. They're recruiting agents to a culture, not a carrier, not a product, to a culture. And they talk about what you get, not what they have. So they recruit you to the platform. And the platform that they promote gives you everything you need to run your business. And they're not the only ones. New Horizons out there buying distributions right now. They're buying broker dealers out there. And this is what your agents get in their email basket every day. And you see what they're doing is they're using videos to get in front of the agent. They're recruiting the agent in to a story. Great stories are about people, not things. I mentioned that last week. And they tell really great stories. You probably haven't even heard of an Insurance Sales Lab. They don't have a big name out in the marketplace, but they're recruiting like crazy. And look what they're doing. They're using behavior learning to recruit with. The words that are bolded are words that you use in your voice inflection. So just listen, should you track the number of phone calls your team members make every day? They emphasize the words that matter to us. As salespeople, as leaders, they are connecting with agents out there. And look what they did at the bottom here. Download the Daily Domination Tracker. They're offering a value added before you ever even talk to someone about being an agent with them, because it's virtual. Everything's virtual today. Look at this guy here with Dream Source Consulting. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're not, there's not a lot of design to their email. They use rich text format, but look how it pops. And what they're talking about is what agents are talking about. Agents are talking about leads, right? They've done that since God was here. They talk about leads, they talk about activity, they talk about issued business, and they talk about their commissions. And look what they're talking about. They're talking about commissions, the money you can make, and they're selling the problem that every agent has. Every one of Cody's agents, every one of your agents, every day believes that they spend too many hours prospecting, and they're talking to the agent. Agents read this and they identify with it. This email came to me on the 23rd. So that was yesterday at 1:41, right? So this is from Insurance Sales Lab, but look at this. They sent it on the 27th. They sent it 6 days ago. They're staying in front of the agent every week with value added messaging, and they all have videos. So virtual is not an anomaly. It's not something that we kind of should do. It's here. It's normal in the industry today. So how do you create a successful virtual sales training program? I'm going to give you some ideas on this. And this is not a something or nothing. This is just ideas that you can kind of package together as a standalone or as a university. But I'll go back to what I said last week. You got to start with the goal. I wish every distribution, I wish every IMO, every broker, every carrier out there, I wish their goal was that their agents make $100,000 a year. I don't think that's an unreasonable goal. I think it's an attainable goal. And it hurts my heart when I hear recruiting sessions and I read emails where they're satisfied with agents making $50,000, $75,000 a year. Because agents will attain to about half of what the goal is set. And God forbid they're married. Like I had an agent when I was at Mutual of Omaha, whose wife was a pharmacist. She made $90,000 a year. This is back in 2001. And he only needed to make about $40,000 or $50,000 a year for them to meet their bills. And guess what he did when he hit that number? He quit working. He quit coming to meetings. You know what? It was what happened to Bob. Nobody knew what happened to Bob because he made the money he needed and then he was gone. So I think a great goal is everybody, and it's a culture. If the culture is that everybody makes $100,000 a year, then it's not unusual and uncommon. But to do that, you got to work backwards. So if we want to make $100,000 a year, it's $8,333 a month, $2,100 a week, $400 a day. And once they get their business model, once they get their income model in line, then we got to make everything they need to make that money. We've got to make it accessible for them. Because I showed you the girl sitting there with her laptop. Everything's accessible. Okay? Today, no matter what your age or what generation you're in, absolutely everything's accessible. And when it's not accessible, that's what's strange and unusual. So if you're going to make it accessible, it really needs to be structured. I talked last week about training your team on the things you want them to do the most in the order you want them to do those things. And the thing we want them to be best at, best in class at, is having activity, opening conversations, and converting those conversations to paying customers. Those are the three things that any distribution has got to have a team that can do this. And Cody is the epitome of this. His team illustrates this exact point. Cody's team doesn't like Cody because he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. Don't get me wrong. But Cody's team likes Cody because when they make a phone call, Cody answers. When they bring a problem to Cody, Cody's got a solution. And the solution Cody has isn't a textbook solution. It's a solution that he's actually done walking and talking out in the field, having been beat up and gone through that before. And his team knows that. So it has to be a structure that makes sense to the team. And if you're going to have a structure, the structure needs to be aligned with what the goals are. And I see this all across the country, where distribution set a goal for premium, but when you divide that into the number of agents, they say we want you to make $100,000 a year, but their goal works out to agents are making $50,000 a year. So it all has to be aligned. So the training has to be aligned with what the goals are that the agent sets. And then there has to be good mentoring. And mentoring means that we have to develop leaders. And a leader doesn't have to be somebody with a title. I mean, I've had a lot of great agents that worked for me over the years that weren't a manager, but they were my go-to person. They weren't my field trainer, but they're the ones I wanted to take someone out in the field because they were the great mentors. And that comes at a cost. We know what the obstacles are to building teams. It's a lack of consistent training. And I've never known a carrier, I've never known a company, and a lot of distributions do this. Every time a new person comes on board, that new person brings their history with them. They bring their method with them. And sometimes they bring their team with them. And so what happens is everything has to get torn down that was built up for them to do their thing. And then a year later, a couple of years later, a few years later, they're gone. Somebody else comes in and they've got a new method, which always astounds me because I think the method that works is the one that produced the most revenue. I know that sounds odd, but I think you go back to your highest producing weeks, figure out what method was being used to produce that income, and that's what you get married to. And the problem with a lot of distributions is they're married to what they do, not what they want to produce. So you got to have consistent training, whatever the training track is. There's a lack of effective recruiting skills. And I would equate that to two things is we don't know who we're recruiting. So we're just looking for licensed agents, right? We don't know, or agents that can get licensed. We don't know who we're recruiting. And we don't have a culture that we're recruiting them to. So we don't end up with people that fit the culture. And when you have that, what happens is because the managers don't have that track to run on, they become unwilling to adjust. And when managers are unwilling to adjust, they get dug into what they're doing. And if what they're doing isn't producing results, then they just dig the hole deeper. And that means that they start criticizing the trivial issues. And I always knew the offices that were struggling and we need to go in and do some work with because they criticize trivial things. And any agent that's been sitting in a parking lot, I mean, in a driveway at a house and has underwriting call because a box wasn't checked, they get what I'm saying when I say trivial stuff, because that's not trivial. If that check doesn't take place, that policy doesn't get issued and I don't have money to pay my house payment. But managers that are unwilling to adjust, they get caught up in criticizing trivial issues. And then you have a team of people that just major on the minors. The great thing about having a consistent virtual university is that you can have content available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no matter where they're at. And you can coach and train at the point of deviation. So any leader can recognize what's going on in the field, no matter anywhere in the country it is. And you can go in and tell them, I want you to go back through this course, this lesson, finish the quiz, then I want you to call me and I want to talk to you. And you have a team available for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that can coach and train at the point of deviations. And once our team gets the habit of doing this, you won't even have to do that anymore. And that's the whole point. Distributions fail when they start deviating from a system that works. And we have to be confident in the system. We have to have a system that our team has confidence in. We have to have a system when the team logs in, if Cody can't answer, if Roger can't answer, if Lisa can't answer, they have to have an answer at the time they need to make money. And they've got to be able to hit that phone because they're used to doing it, hit their tablet, log in, rewatch a message, pull the script down, whatever it is, and have that available to them all the time. And it's really easy to do. It's so easy to do that when they don't have it, those emails that they're getting from everybody else start looking attractive. So what's the benefit of a university? Well, you have consistent training experience for everybody. If you go to a McDonald's and order a kids meal, a hamburger kids meal, that's what I like, hamburger kids meal. If you order that in Redding, California, or Palm Beach, Florida, or Atlanta, Georgia, or Des Moines, Iowa, you get the exact same thing. And I can tell you, when I ran an office in Knoxville, there was 37 managers. That meant there was 37 different recruiting methods. There was 37 different training philosophies, and there was 37 different results. That's why the production went from the very lowest to the very highest. And the way to even that out and get rid of the ebb and flow and the up and down is to having consistency, something that's duplicatable, that anybody, regardless of what their production or their education, they can learn to go out and do it. They can find one thing, they can go out and do it. And here's what you end up with. You end up getting more quality agents. Because when you can recruit agents to a system that the agent can believe in, you get a better quality of agent. The converse of that is also true. You get rid of, some people we're all born with an umbilical cord. Have you ever hired the person who walks, their umbilical cord's cut when they're born and they walk around the rest of their life looking for a place to plug in? You get rid of those agents because they can't make it, but they can't make it because they won't do it. There's a difference between willingness and ability. And so what happens, you increase the ratio of agents in production per office. And that's something that everybody's team takes pride in. I know Cody's team takes pride in where they're at. They take pride in what their numbers are at. And they should. Any good team takes pride in what the numbers are. And so what happens is their closing rate ends up going up. They don't even need to run as many appointments because they can close more of their appointments and their income becomes more consistent. And guess what happens? You eliminate excuses. They're just gone. The biggest reason why they're gone is because nobody accepts them anymore. They all have the same product, the same price, the same lead source, the same training. And the only difference is how they're executing it. And you'd be surprised how quickly the excuses get out of there. So you can recruit neophytes while they're lacking in experience with the proper training and mentoring. You can develop a team of experienced licensed agents. But you've got to leverage technology. And I think ARS can leverage technology and operate more efficiently in the field. And let me tell you my definition of operate more efficiently in the field. Have the tools and resources available for the producing agent at the time they need it. And that's what makes it more efficient. New recruits can have the virtual learning university as a foundation, either pre or post licensing. I don't know what your recruiting process is now. I knew what it was at one time. I'm not sure what it is now, but managers learn their best practices to recruit. I mean, this is the advantage of having a learning university. They learn the best practices. They learn how to train. They learn how to retain agents. And that gives you a constant supply of quality people to move up in the chain of managers. I mean, good distributions are never recruiting managers. If you're recruiting managers, then you already know that your process of building teams isn't working, because you should be able to have, every office should have one or two people waiting in the wings to be the next manager, because your system is so strong and they're making such a good income and everything is duplicatable. So whether it's pre-licensing or licensing, they all start off with a 7-step sales process. I mean, I think that's been around for 100 years. If you type in 7-step sales presentation in Google, there's probably like 9,000 versions of it. But there is a 7-step sales process. I think product training should be done by the people that are proficient at it, and that's the product people. I always had the product people do the training. That's their wheelhouse. But I wanted to show them how to market that product to the consumer, so that the consumer saw the product as a way to solve their problem. And to do that, you need what I call a virtual immersion sales course. And it's a sales course that has all the information in there that your new agents can go in at any time, 24/7. Your existing agents can go in and beef up their skills. Every time I've done a training with agents that have been around for 30 years, they sit like this in the training, like, why do I need to be in this training? And at the end of the training, they always come up to me and say, you know what, I used to do that. I need to start doing that again. That's what we need to have. We need to have that content in there for them, so that we can get that, so they can get that extra production out of their efforts, build their self-esteem up, and see themselves as that competent person again. And then managers need a complete leadership program from beginning to end, and it should not interfere with production. You know, the problem with training managers is you either have to bring them in out of the field, or you have to take a producing manager and take them out of production to train a manager. Either way, it costs you production. And when it costs you production, that costs you traction. So by having a way to virtually provide managers with a consistent, duplicatable recruiting training, you get a better quality of agent. Your agency managers should be the ones that lead and coach agents through the virtual learning platform. The field training managers, their role is to illustrate, and Cody, you correct me if I'm wrong on this, their role is to illustrate the skills that agents learn in training, to illustrate those skills out in the field. That will increase presentations, reduce or eliminate objections, and it'll convert more prospects into loyal clients, which will improve retention. So you don't lose agents because they're failing. And to do that, every manager needs to go through the virtual learning leadership program in order to refine their recruiting techniques, because their recruiting techniques are going to drive their behavior more towards more productive recruiting activity. And I mean, just taking phone calls, calling blind resumes, and tell them about the company, the product, and the commission does not get you quality people, and it does not build future leaders for you. It just gets you another agent. I worked with a team today, and here's what I told them to do. I told them, and Cody will remember this from class. I told them, go online, type in affordable health insurance, and the first page that comes up in Google, go to the first 5 places and fill out the form. And then when the agent calls you, write down what their script is and never use it again. Because you sound like every other agent. And that's what managers do. They use a recruiting script like everybody else is using. And I showed you at the beginning of this, recruiting is virtual now, and you've got to have that virtual message. So here's what I would counsel you to have in your leadership course for them. What is management? There's a difference between management and leadership. You manage things and you lead people. We need to help them understand the difference of that. We need to get them to have a mindset to transform themselves from being a manager to a leader. The days of organizing your leads so that you can tell people you're busy are gone. They need to want to know how to move from being a manager to a leader. And then they have to know what it means to be a leader who leads. I remember one time a manager said something to a home office person and was getting in trouble for it. And I said something to somebody in the home office, has anybody ever trained that manager how to work with the home office staff? And the person looked at me like I was from the moon and said, well, no. I said, because the way they're talking is the way we talk in the field. They're talking, this is exactly the kind of concern they would have in the field and the way they would express it in the field. We haven't trained them to do this. We need to do this with managers. We need to train them on how to lead. And we need to talk to them about winning. Winning should not be, this is a cultural thing, but this is my view. Winning should not be something that's unusual. It should become the common and the normal thing to do. Agents making $100,000 a year should just be the way it is. And that can happen. That's easy to have happen. Because what we do is, just as we do with the agents, where we have them get together a business plan and an activity plan, the managers need to have a business plan. There needs to be a distinct role for the district manager in implementing that business plan, and the district manager needs to have their own role. We need to have a consistent recruiting process where we train the managers. This is how you recruit. This is the philosophy of it. And then recruiting activity that we can monitor and we can measure. And my role, what I would like to see is to be able to train them to do that on their own. How to take ad calls, how to do group recruiting. I don't know if you do group recruiting. If you don't, then take that out. How to do the second interview, how to make the job offer to the agent. Build on the 14 tips on how adults learn. How do you run an effective sales meeting? How do you do an effective phone training? What is activity planning? How do you coach somebody to do better activities? What's the principle for for getting results in the field with your field training? And what are the keys to role playing? How do you do curbside coaching? I think all those are things that we can provide pretty easily. And once managers know that they can find this information, they'll go seek it out and they'll start giving it a shot. And the great thing for your existing managers that go through it, they can recognize when their team isn't doing it and tell them to go back online and go back through the training. The 7 Steps course is pretty common. It can be adjusted to, whatever variables your distribution uses. But that can be something when they're going through their pre-licensing, they can go online and do that right then. Or if they come on board after they get licensed, not only can they do it right then, but now the managers have something they can tell them to go back to. If they see that they're getting appointments and they're starting the presentation, but they never finish the application, then maybe there's a problem in qualification and they can refer them back to qualification. They know what the questions are in there. They can tell them to finish it, give me a call, and then they can walk through it with them again. It's available 24/7 for them. So I talked about having a virtual immersion course that is available for every agent. It's out there all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So any level of agent can go out there and get additional training and reminders. And these are the things that I think these are the things that I'm finding really help with other distributions. Everything from what's getting in your way to people on the move is about generational marketing, the major retirement concern. These are the things that seniors are concerned about. Buying behaviors, handling objections. When does the close begin? The 4 things close, selling final expense in a growing market. All these things can be available 24/7, and agents can take responsibility for their own development in their career. And we can offer target market courses. You guys can pick this. I sent you guys a senior course that I do all the time. This is it. It's got 7 modules in it, and each module takes them on a journey. And it takes them on a journey from the consumer's point of view so that they get a good handle on what problems the person turning 65 is facing and what they as an agent should know about it and how to marry the solutions to the problems that the consumer has. And there, like I said, there's seven modules in it. And we move them to package selling so that they start learning to package their, whether it's a dental plan, a recovery plan, a final expense plan, short-term care, whatever it is, they start learning to pick up that lost commission and start package selling. And again, create a culture that package selling is normal, not abnormal. And I know American Republic's good at doing that. And then the annuity course isn't just the basic annuities. Yes, we go through some of the basics of an annuity, but I want to talk to them about what are the major retirement concerns. So the agent learns the banter that prospects respond to when you talk to them about the things that are impacting their lives. There's a lot of misconceptions about selling annuities. People think it's hard. They think there's no money to be made on it. None of that's true. There's a ton of money that can be made on it. In fact, I go through the 8 rules for selling annuities that you should do with every prospect. Talk about the features of fixed annuities. Did you know a person can buy an annuity to buy a business? Did you know that a person could buy an annuity to fund child support? There's a ton of markets out there for annuities. And of course, we go through the annuity basics and annuity terms. No individual information on annuities. The carriers are great at that. The carriers know their products. They're the ones that, in my view, should do that. So those are some of the different options for you. Here's some things that you can do as a standalone. You can add in. You can do. I offer on my website. You can schedule 15 minutes with me, and you can have an X number of 15-minute sessions available, and people can schedule it. My calendar is always up to date. They can go and schedule ad hoc. I'll spend 15 minutes with them. Maybe they walk out of a sale and they got an objection they couldn't handle and they can't figure out what they did wrong and they want to schedule 15 minutes and talk about it. Or maybe a manager wants to call up and bitch about an agent but doesn't want anybody to know he's bitching about him, whatever. You can promote a bi-monthly insider tips. Or I do a power hour with one group. They have 350 to 400 advisors on every Wednesday at noon, and they call it the power hour. And they just type in the chat thing, their objections they've had, problems they've had, and we just go back and forth on it. You can do that weekly or bi-monthly. You can have a quarterly virtual roundup. That's always a great thing to do, where you review what your goal was at the beginning of the quarter, you review where you're at, and then you go around robin, and you get everybody to make a commitment of what they're going to do different on the next quarter, so that you can start hitting your numbers. As the pandemic changes, you can do regional on-site workshops and seminars. Until then, we can do them virtually. Again, I showed you how some ways you can deliver market-specific courses. There's a whole ton of those we can do. You can launch targeted boot camps. So you can have, with Combined Insurance Company, we call it AMWARS. And so what we used to do is we used to put all this training in a box, and we would train for a particular thing for a 2-week period. So we'd say, we're going to sell this many policies in this 2 weeks. And every night we had people calling in. And anyway, there's a whole bunch of different targeted boot camps that can be done. And then sales practice consulting. A lot of times managers and district managers need somebody outside of their group. Sometimes we want to bitch about our manager, but we don't, it's not that we don't like him, but we need to vent to somebody else that can give us a different perspective. Or sometimes just the agent needs to be able to do that. And then last one is, as Cody mentioned, is the train the trainer. And there's a world of difference. There's a world of difference in being a great producer and being able to transfer skill sets. The biggest mistake that I see distributions make all the time is they take a top producer and they think because he can manage himself that he knows how to manage a team. And that's rarely true. And that same principle comes into play when you train people. Just because somebody was good at doing one thing doesn't make them competent and capable to transfer skill sets. And I'll close with this. And the reason for that is you train what you know. So you can hire people who know something and can train what they know, but you reproduce who you are. And I'm a salesman. Salesmen know I'm a salesman. Manager knows I'm a leader. They know that I'm talking from actual experience. They know that I can give them concrete, actionable suggestions that will get them out there making money. I can help them correct and move forward from where they deviate. I can help them write scripts and rebuttals. They know this. So you train what you know, but you reproduce who you are. So no matter what you guys do, my counsel to you is make sure you do it so that it's reproducible and it's duplicatable so anybody can do it. So that's my 2 cents. Actually, it was 3.5 cents.
Well, I think that was the feedback we got from the managers when they were looking at your program. They liked the fact that everything was consistent and that, it's available 24/7. And from what I got from Cody's email was that everybody's on board, that this is a good thing to do, something we really need to do. They believed in, your abilities as a trainer.
Well, and I'll tell you this, some of them are probably already doing this other places and we just don't know it.
Yeah. And one of the things you had mentioned, like group recruiting, we went down that road with Don Runge a while back, and a lot of that, went over like a lead balloon. And a lot of it was, there was so much, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cody, and I don't know how much involvement you had at the time. There was so much paperwork involved with everything he wanted the managers to do. So it was, they were always, they were completing trackers to track a tracker, and it just was out of control paperwork. And basically everybody kind of threw up their arms, and it's like, we've had enough.
Yeah, Don's a great guy. I've known him for years. So and I'm not promoting it one way or the other. It's your guys' business. There's really just 3 steps in group recruiting. There's only 3 steps, and that's one: you invite people to the briefing. You never call it a recruiting or a meeting. It's a briefing. You sell the problem that they have, and you tell them how they make money, and then you invite them for a second interview if they're interested in finding out how to do what you just showed them to do. And at the second interview, you have them sell you on why you should let them come on board. And then you tell them in 2 days, I'm going to call you and let you know what our decision is. And then you make a job offer. There's only 3 steps to group recruiting. And one of the reasons why when it's trained properly and it's implemented properly, it's a great process, because if you interview 10 people and the interview takes an hour, that's 10 hours. If you do a group recruiting with 10 people, it takes 1 hour, and you can get 2 or 3 people out of it at the same time. And that value of having 10 people or 15 people or 20 people in the room is contagion. If you can get one person kind of interested and excited and answering questions, kind of infects the rest of the room. But individual recruiting works just as well. Either one that you do, the manager has to be proficient at it. And there's a psychology to recruiting, there's a psychology to the interview, and there's a psychology to the job offer. Just to give you a little insight, it's like when you make the job offer, you should never, ever, 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 ever make a job offer. You should always ask them what they think, and then you should ask them a question. If I told you that I was thinking about bringing you on board, what would your reaction be? That question should be asked of everybody. Because if they say, well, I didn't know about the commissions, I didn't know about the leads, I'm glad you brought that up. That's why I called you today. I need to have a second meeting with you. You never make a job offer so someone can reject you. And you make them feel like that they might not get it in order to make it valuable. And that's what creates the culture. Recruiting, I'm going off recruiting. Recruiting actually starts with the very first contact. So there's really only, in my view, there's only 3 steps to group recruiting. But however you guys want to do that, I can help you with that. So what do you need from me, Lisa? I'll email you this presentation here, and I'll email you the video.
Okay. Well, like I said, what Roger was looking at was a proposal on, what would be the cost if we provide the modules, and, so they're available 24/7.
Okay.
And I guess one of the questions is, are those housed on your site, or is that something we would house on our site?
They're housed on my platform.
Okay.
And then what you have to decide is if you want my standalone ones, which are generic, or if you want them branded for American Republic.
I think we would want them branded and specific to American Republic.
I do too. But can you quote us the cost both ways?
Sure. All right,
we definitely want the manager training and train the trainer.
So let me just roll back through this real quickly here, and you tell me, do you want the annuity strategies in there?
We are probably not out of the gate. Okay. We are not big into annuities. We never have been. I mean, we've had certain managers come on board, ask us to bring on annuity carriers. We've done so. We fell flat on our face. Right. We spend a lot of money to do it with little return. So I would say that's probably down the road, something we might add.
Do you want a senior course like this with the 7 modules in it? Why don't I email this to you, and then you can email me back and let me know which ones you want to have in there.
Okay.
Does that work for you?
Did you have something to say?
I mean, that's right in our wheelhouse. I mean,
yeah,
that's definitely, I'm not the one with the budget, but I would say let's do it all, because I know we need help in recruiting big time. And that goes for everybody, including myself. Everybody can get better. And that's something we struggle with. On the sales and these different courses, that's going to really help new agents.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be a total game changer for new agents. And number two, agents that have become disengaged, I think could become re-engaged and kind of get that fire back by going through some of this stuff. And the first thing that would tell me that someone's getting back re-engaged is if they start asking questions, or if I see that they're taking these modules, and I'll be like, oh, okay, well, they're kind of plugging back in, because there's some people that they kind of go up and down, and they're in
Yeah.
and out and stuff.
Well,
But
what's not on here is like you saw in that 10-day boot camp I give you access to. A lot of those I give homework. So I give them a download, and then we review it the next time. So they'll get a lot of that kind of material too.
Yeah,
So
I think
here's what I would tell
everyone
you.
liked that.
Excuse me?
It sounded like everyone kind of liked that too.
Yeah. So here's the two things I would tell you to look at. There's two ways you make a decision. You make a decision of what it costs you or what you gain. So what it'll cost you is whatever the dollars are to set the platform up the way you want it, have it do what you want it to do, and the monthly engagement that we do with your team. What you gain, it really can only be figured in two ways, and that is increase of agents in production and increase in production. So the number of agents you get in production, both from when you first hire them to when they write their first piece of business, and the increase in production over the first 90 days of people that go through the course, and then the increase in production, deducting the cost of having the platform up there.
Yeah.
So the money you put out to put the platform up is a one-time cost, and then your monthly amount to provide it ongoing against what your growth revenue will be for however long you have it up there, which can be for forever. So those are the two things that I think you have to think about. I will tell you what a lot of organizations do. They start off small and they build up. So they start off with a couple of basic courses, one for the managers and one for the agents, and then they have me do the other stuff live in weekly webinars. Because the nice part about having that is that your team's interacting with me, like you heard on that 10-day course I gave you. They're asking questions. I'm responding in real time to what their questions are. And so when I put it up there and people log into it, they can hear the exact problems and stuff people are having. So you can have a basic course for the agents, a basic course for the managers, and then you can have ongoing stuff that we record that's specific for your group. And every week we're putting up new material for them.
hey, Lisa, something, and I did not come in prepared for what I'm about to bring up, but I just wrote it down on this. So in looking at this, and I'm assuming what the organization, what corporate makes on production. And I'm just kind of making an assumption there. If we could increase our production, let's say overall as an organization by 600,000 in premium, which if you break that down, that's 50 agents producing 12,000 more than either what they're currently producing, or these are new agents producing that have never produced before. I feel like based on kind of what I know a little bit about what the system may cost, I mean, I think it would pay for itself. And at that point, it's not even going to seem like it's an actual expense, because it would be paying for itself with the extra production we gain. And I may be off on the percentage that we get on that 600,000, but of increased production. But I think that's a realistic thing, and it could be a lot more than that. I mean, it could be 2 or 3 million more in production. But I'm just saying, on a very low scale, if there was 600,000 increase in production, the system, I think, would either pay for itself or more than pay for itself. And I think it definitely can do that.
Let me throw this out there. I would say what it does is it, instead of paying for itself, it helps you generate additional revenue.
Yeah.
And so, the three things it'll do is it'll help you increase production. It'll get agents in production quicker, and it will cut your recruiting costs because you'll have less turnover. And the people that you recruit will be more quality people because you have something to recruit them to. I mean, if you're recruiting
You
messages,
said it better. I wasn't prepared.
I mean, don't
You
take
said
a, don't take offense where offense isn't meant, but I feel, a little kinship with the American Republic. But if the message is we've been in business for 80 years and we have these carriers and these products, that's a hard message to compete with the messages out there in the marketplace. I mean, I showed you just a few of the recruiting messages that are out there. All right, I'm gonna stop the recording.
Yeah, I think it's just, we have to know, we have to know what the cost is. I mean, Cody, as you know, I mean, we didn't budget for anything like this, but that has never stopped us from doing things in the past.
Well,
And of course,
I'll keep it less than
and of course, like you said, Lloyd, I mean, if I can increase revenue, that speaks volumes. I mean, that's the whole deal.
Well, my goal in what I send you, Lisa, is to have you reposition part of the money you pay a trainer into a platform that's going to make you money.
Yeah.
Instead of having a cost. Because every agent out, I'll tell you what the agents say out in the field. Maybe I shouldn't say this.
No, you should.
Did I say it?
You should say it.
What agents say out in the field is that they're called profit and the home office staff is called overhead.
Yep, I know.
So when you create a virtual learning platform that gives them the chance to grow their skill set and eliminate a cost in the home office, as long as we keep it under the cost of having a trainer, then the only way it would not work for you is if leadership does not support it with the field. Because I don't care what you put out there, you can have med sup plans that are zero premium, right?
Oh yeah.
Which there aren't any, right? But you could have a med sup plan at zero premium, and if leadership doesn't support it in the field's always going to find a reason not to do it.
Well, I think still with field training, that's the DSM, ASM field trainer. And I think this is giving them a track to run on to get them out in the field. So that's one of the reasons why I've kind of changed my tune with a physical trainer versus a platform, because the other thing is if an actual trainer gets promoted or goes to a different company or something, then we're starting all over again. If we've got a platform that we just plug people into, we're not starting over. We're already in a system that's just going to keep on trucking along. And I don't think a trainer would want or be capable of being available 24/7. It's not possible, you know? So
and it has to be somebody the field is willing to contact.
Right.
Yeah, and we've been down that road where that doesn't work. We know.
Yeah.
We've done that
a few times.
Yeah, we've done that, and